Welcome to this ToolHound Learning Center video where we'll look at managing personnel from when they start as a new hire, day-to-day functions, and cover what to do when personnel leave. Each personnel record must have an employer. Optional references include a supervisor, which are other personnel with the supervisor flag checked, and a craft, which is a trade or job description. A personnel record can have multiple certifications assigned, which are training cards or qualifications. All of these references must exist before they can be added to the personnel record, so let's start there. Employers are a required reference for personnel. They group personnel together and are used to quickly apply certain properties to all associated personnel. If you're using the transaction rental module, the rate sheet is applied to the employer rather than each individual personnel. If the employer is made inactive, then all linked personnel are ineligible for transactions even while they remain active. This means that any outstanding inventory cannot be returned. You need at least one employer. This is usually your own company. The only required fields in this case are the employer number, the name, and the visibility. For subcontractors or third parties, you might want to include additional contact information. Crafts are trades, jobs, or skill classifications. They are an optional reference for personnel. Certifications are optional references for personnel. They are training cards, special skills, or qualifications related to any equipment used in the field. Certifications can carry an expiry date if appropriate. Some examples include first aid, lockout and tagout, H2S, forklift operator, or oil field safety driver. Background notifications can be set up to keep on top of personnel certifications that might be expiring. This defaults to 30 days in advance in those that are already expired. Let's look at adding a new personnel record. Charles Fuentes is a new hire. We'll start by clicking plus to add the new personnel record and enter the entity ID. We'll enter the first and last name, then set the visibility and select his employer. We'll add the optional picture for Charles from his ID badge. We select Charles's craft from the list, and if we wanted to indicate that he's a supervisor, we would check the option right beneath. We'll set his direct supervisor of Angus. We could set the maximum issue serialized and bulk to restrict the number of items that can be issued by inventory type. This cannot be overridden at the time of the transaction. Next, we add the hire date. Next, we'll add Charles's 4 certifications on the Certifications tab. First is driver's license with an expiry date. Next, oil field driver safety, forklift operator training, and the last one is first aid training with an annual refresh. And we'll set the expiry date for that as well. And we'll save this new personnel record. But wait, we forgot to add the email address. So let's go back to the General tab, add that in, and save the email address. Let's look at some of the day-to-day tasks related to personnel. Andy drops by the tool crib and asks what tools are issued out under his name. So we look him up, select the Transaction History tab, and check Outstanding Only. He then says, email me that list. So we click on the email icon, and the email is sent. Andy's supervisor, Peter, is doing a safety audit. He wants to know if Andy has taken out any fire extinguishers. We filter the transaction history and don't find any results. Peter asks about lockout tags. We filter the transactions and find 3 issues. We'll export those transactions out to Excel to have a closer look. We relay the information to Peter, and he asks us to email it to him later in the day. Let's look at how to update personnel when they leave. If you know in advance of someone leaving, such as the end of a job or a demobilization, you can run the issued assets report or send the issued assets email along with a custom message. In this case, we were advised that Jay Bird has left. We don't know what happened to him or the inventory. So we'll look him up and check the outstanding inventory on the Transaction History tab. We'll come back to the General tab and set the termination date. This has no impact on the transactions, and we'll save that change. We'll return any outstanding inventory as lost. This will retire serialized items and create inventory adjustments for any bulk items. We'll use issued inventory to quickly fetch all the items issued out to Jay. Once the transaction is saved, we'll go back to Jay's record, double check that there are no outstanding items, and finally make his personnel record inactive by removing the check mark. This makes him ineligible for transactions. It also keeps the history in case he ever comes back. Let's review what we've learned so far. Employers are required. Everybody likes to get paid. Email addresses aren't required, but they do increase efficiency. You can use this to send the issued assets email or the outstanding tools email. Making the employer inactive prevents personnel transactions. So if the employer is made inactive, all linked personnel are ineligible for transactions even while they remain active. This means that any outstanding inventory can't be returned, so be sure to check before you make the employer inactive. For departing staff, ensure that all inventory has been returned before making them inactive. And for importing, make sure you use the current template. When you're importing new personnel, ensure that all the requirements exist before importing. And when you're importing to update, make sure that the required references exist before importing, but also make sure that any existing data is included in the template, otherwise it will be updated with a blank. Thanks for watching this video from the ToolHound Learning Center. For any questions, contact our support team. And remember, subscribe and hit the notification bell.